Hello, Keerat.
Hello.
Welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I'm really glad that you could join me here this afternoon. We want to talk a little bit about your interest in Punjabi literature, arts, and culture,
Sure.
and talk a little bit about the Dhahan Prize for 2023.
That sounds great.
Great. So I'm just curious, you're Canadian born, and as a young girl, you went back to India for a while. What role did that play for you in developing this keen interest in Punjabi language, literature, and its arts?
I think when I first went back to Punjab, my parents were the ones who really wanted that for my brother and I. Their whole aim was to actually just imbue us in Punjabiyat, in the language and the culture, all the different aspects of what we deem Punjabi, as well as Sikhi, right? So for me and my family, that was always very central. And I think when we were here as kids, my brother and I, we were always exposed to Gurbani and Kirtan, and we were always reading Gurmukhi and exposed to some Punjabi literature as well. But I think moving to Punjab actually it was an immersive experience. So it was everywhere. It was on the signage, it was in school, we learned it formally. So I think that even though I was speaking it and writing it here in Canada, being in Punjab allowed me to really refine my understanding of grammar, syntax, all of those things in the language. And I feel like when you're immersed in it in that level, it just really becomes part of your DNA and it seeps into you. And I think that because of that period of my life, and also like all the subsequent trips that we took to Punjab afterwards and remained connected, I think it just really became a permanent part of who I am.
Is there a singular event or experience in India that really became the inspiration for all that you do as an artist?
That's such an interesting question because I feel like everything that I've done as an artist really began way sooner than that. So I think I've been creating since I was like 2 years old. I've been making and drawing, painting, whatever it is, since as long as I can remember, right? Like I don't actually remember that first moment. But I do know that what inspired it the most was hearing stories and hearing different moments from Sikh history and just different concepts in Punjabi folk that weren't necessarily given to me in visual form. They were passed down to me orally by my parents and stories. So I would hear those stories. And then on the other side, we have to remember I am growing up in London, Ontario, so I'm exposed to all these like Disney movies, all of this animation. That always really appealed to me. So I would hear these stories and then I was also seeing all these very vivid visuals. And my response naturally was just to give those stories a visual dimension. So I think that that's what I've been doing since I was very, very young. And I think that specific thing is what has evolved into my practice today, and specifically, into the book that I illustrated and wrote. It's really that tie between literature and writing and visuals that's always been a very important part of my practice. So no matter what it is that I'm doing, whatever medium it is, it's very much seeped in written form and literature. Yeah.
Then coming back from India and growing up here in Canada,
Yeah.
in English schools, mainly people were of English background or French background.
Right.
How did you deal with this whole notion of identity? You being born into a Punjabi family, going to India for a little while, but being raised in a Canadian context. Did you have any challenges around being Canadian while being Punjabi of Sikh background?
Oh my God, did I ever? That's like my whole life, right? Like just that battle of identity. And for me, because I was born in Canada and then, spent so much time, or spent a couple years at that point in India and came back, I felt like an immigrant, although I wasn't technically an immigrant, but because I had been so, like I was definitely just juggling two worlds, right? Like I was immersed in Punjabi culture, being a Punjabi student, Punjabi schools, and then coming back, it was definitely a challenge because I feel like the students and the teachers at school, they saw me as an immigrant. They saw me as someone who needed assistance with English, and I did French immersion, so that was a whole other dimension. But I always felt like, you know, no, I'm Canadian, like I get it. You don't have to like explain all this stuff to me, right? But it was still challenging because at that point, also growing up in London, Ontario, there weren't very many Punjabis in the city. The city was pretty homogenous up until like I was in grade 7, I think. That's when like I started seeing more multiculturalism in school. And there was a lot of different cultures, but no one was Punjabi. Like I was the only Punjabi kid in school until first year uni, actually. So I feel like that always made me fight a little extra harder for my identity because no one really got it. So I didn't take it for granted, if that makes sense, right? Like it wasn't something that was easy, I'll say. I was always proud of it. I always loved it. I loved everything that Sikh and Punjabi had given me. Apart from like obviously some of the issues, nothing's perfect, but I really liked it. So it wasn't like hard in that sense, but it was definitely a bit of an upstream battle in that sense that, you know, there wasn't anyone that understood it. So I had to explain things and again, had to make extra efforts to speak Punjabi at home so that I could maintain it and immerse myself in Sikhi as well, because I mean, I wasn't getting it from like friends and school. So it was just, made me work a little extra harder. Yeah.
What do you see are some of the major challenges for young people that either came to Canada from, say, Punjab, Indian Punjab, Pakistani Punjab, to retain their language and culture, and then especially for those who are born and raised here?
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you see they have?
For sure. I think I can speak to that firsthand even, right? Because I consider myself part of that group, of course. I think one of the biggest challenges, which is also kind of a blessing as well, is that there's so much around us. There's so many different cultures around us. You know, sometimes it's hard to figure out your place, and there's always like these hierarchies. What is better? What is considered more elite? Especially in the West, a lot of people, I mean, I understand why, but they do give English more of an importance, and I understand why. You know, there's practical reasons, like globalization has made English the language of choice. I think the biggest challenge is the hierarchy for me, what I've seen, right? Seeing Punjabi as, you know, not so cool, not so chic, not a very elegant thing, right? There is also like the other side of that coin where there's a lot of people who are very proud of Punjabiyat and everything that it has to offer. But what I've felt a lot is just a little bit of a pushback to Punjabi not being considered something worthy of respect, right? Like I've seen a lot with myself when I converse with elders. I will speak to them in Punjabi, and you know their response will be, "Nahi nahi, koi gal nahi, mainu angrezi aandi hai." Like it's fine. You don't have to speak to me in Punjabi. I know English. It's fine, right? So it's kind of like, you know, even though some of us might want to explore that territory, there's like this grand belief that Punjabi isn't at that level.
ਕੀਰਤ, ਮੈਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਹਾਂ, ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਸੀਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਟੀਨੇਜਰਸ ਜਾਂ 20 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਨਮ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਣੀ ਤਾਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਬਾਹਲੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਲਿਖਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ, ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ। ਦੂਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਆ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਭੰਗੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਆ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ।
ਭੰਗੜੇ, ਗਿੱਧਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਇੰਜੋਏ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਤੇ ਲਿਖਣੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਆ। ਇਹਦਾ ਕਾਰਨ ਕੀ ਆ?
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਬੋਲੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਪਸੰਦ ਹੈ ਨਾ? ਸੋ ਮੇਰਾ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੋਚ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲੀ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਲੱਭੋ, ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਕਲਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਖੇਡ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਭੰਗੜਾ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਭੰਗੜਾ ਗਿੱਧਾ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਖੀਏ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਸੋ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੀਤ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਪਸੰਦ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੀਤ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਸੁਣੀਏ, ਤੇ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ 'ਚ ਗਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਇਹ ਆਹ ਕੀ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਮੈਂ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਗਾਣਾ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਨਾ ਸਮਝ ਆਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੂੰਗੀ ਵੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਸ ਇਹੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਡੀ ਚਾਹਤ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਇੱਛਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀਏ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ, ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਵੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਧਾਉਣ ਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਡ ਅੱਡ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਲੱਭੀਏ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮਤਲਬ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਾਇਕੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੀਤਕਾਰੀ ਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕ ਹੁਣ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੀਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝੀਏ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀਏ।
ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਡੋਮੀਨੇਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇਹ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ ਬਣ ਗਈ ਆ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ, ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ। ਸੋ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਮਾਪੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਰੁਜ਼ਗਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਸਿੱਖੋ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਰਦੂ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ 'ਤੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਵਾ। ਮੈਂ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਲਾਹੌਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਬਿਲਬੋਰਡ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ। ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਰਦੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਊਗੇ। ਸੋ ਉਸ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦਾ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਆ। ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਸੀਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਰੈਂਚ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਪਾਇਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਰੈਂਚ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਾਪੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਉਣੀ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਫਰੈਂਚ ਇਮਰਜਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਵੋ, ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼ ਚੱਲ ਗਈ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਵਾ। ਇਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਾਡੇ ਸਮਾਜ ਦੇ ਬੜਾ ਜਜ਼ਬਾਤ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਅਤ ਨੂੰ ਰੱਖੀਏ, ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੰਦੀ ਰੱਖੀਏ। ਸਾਡੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ, ਮੰਦਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਾਂ ਮਸੀਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ। ਪਰ ਦੂਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਉਨਾ ਐਂਫੈਸਿਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਿੱਖੋ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਆਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲਿਖਣੀ ਆਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਟੈਨਸ਼ਨ ਆ, ਇਸ ਟੈਨਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੱਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ?
ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਮਸਲੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਮੈਂ ਇਹੀ ਸੋਚਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਦਾ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ, ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਸੌਖਾ ਤਾਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਮੁਸੀਬਤਾਂ ਆਈਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਸਹਿਣਾ ਪਿਆ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਦੋਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਈਡੈਂਟਿਟੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਔਖਾ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਉਹ ਅਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਂਭੀ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੱਧ ਸਕਣਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਣਾ। ਅਤੇ ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਬਦਲਾਅ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਚਾਹੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ। ਅਤੇ ਆਈ ਮੀਨ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਪਰ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਉੱਚਾ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੇ ਸਕਾਂ। ਸੋ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਲਾਈਕ depending on whatever anyone doesn't matter what field you're in, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੁਣੋ, right? So kind of relates to what I was saying about how people can be exposed to language. It's through different mediums, right? So chahe kala rahi hai, chahe gita rahi hai, jo bhi hai, whatever it is that you do, try to weave Punjabi into it and give it that elevated space, because I've seen how that impacts people. Like is kitab rahi main dekhiya ਕਾਫੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਨੂੰ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ Surrey Art Gallery 'ਚ ਐਗਜ਼ੀਬਿਸ਼ਨ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦਾ, ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਮਾਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਥਾਵਾਂ 'ਚ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ. Yeah, so I think that's really the way, just to try to weave it into whatever different field you're in. Kyunki apne log bahut kuch kar rahe hain aajkal, right? Like bade adda tarah de fields hege ne jina ch ਆਪਾਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ. So there's so much opportunity to just weave it in. Like ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਲੀਨਿਕ 'ਚ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਮਤਲਬ have that, offer that. Like you can have consultations in Punjabi. I think that's the best way. I'm sure there's other ways as well, but
you know, you already mentioned your book, Panjabi Garden. I've glanced through it. The illustrations are beautiful.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit, really, about that book as you were thinking about it. What was it that you were trying to achieve through this?
Yeah. When Panjabi Garden began, when the idea began, it actually started from a Punjabi language chart that I had done. So, I mean, I do a lot of illustration in my work, and I wanted to create like a Punjabi chart that was nature themed. So each letter would be paired with a nature themed noun. And when I created that, and you know, a lot of people saw it, they really resonated with it. I think one, because it was themed around nature, and nature metaphors and poetics are so big in Punjabi culture, in Sikhi and in Sikh poetry as well. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people. And a lot of people were saying, you know, like, when are you going to turn this into a book? And I was like, well, maybe I will. And then I started working on it in 2020, in early 2020. And the whole thing was, you know, at every page, at every chance that I can, to really imbue nature and whimsical illustration and imagery and storytelling into language learning. So that was my method of bringing the language into this book. And it actually started, so as I was saying, it started from that chart that I created and I was inspired by. So it started with having these letters paired with nature themed nouns, but I didn't want people to just be sifting through pages of letters and then like a nature themed noun. And so then I created a storyline that weaves all of these nouns together. So if you don't mind, I can actually show you an example of what I mean.
That would be great.
Yeah. And so this is actually one of my favorite ones. So pull it up like this. Okay, so we have cha-cha, right? So that's a letter in the Gurmukhi alphabet. And cha-cha, the noun that goes with it is chatta, which means beehive. So what I've done is I've created a little short story about it, but then that short story also introduces the next noun. So for example, ਛੱਤੇ ਮਧੂਮੱਖੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਪਨਾਹ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਸ਼ਹਿਦ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਹਨ. ਮਧੂਮੱਖੀਆਂ ਇਮਾਰਤਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਤੇ ਜੰਗਲ ਵਿਚਲੇ ਦਰੱਖਤਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਛੱਤੇ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ. So that basically means hives are a home for bees and a place to store their honey. Bees build hives on buildings in the city as well as on trees in the jungle. So that includes the beehive, but then it also introduces the next noun, which is jungle, for the letter jaja. So in that way, these, you know, 2-sentence little short stories say something about the noun, but then they also connect to the subsequent noun, and then they connect all 41 letters that way. And so the last letter connects back to the first one. So it's like this continuous cycle of storytelling. And so it actually started that way. And then it evolved a little bit further because I thought to myself, okay, if people are going to read these little stories written in Gurmukhi, also transliterated, and then they also have translations, I want them to have some background of the language of the script. And so that's why at the beginning of the book I have a bit of a breakdown of the script, and then I do some exploration of nouns as well. And I just break down a little bit of those linguistic elements. So it kind of evolved from like one thing to another. So it started from that chart that I created, and then wanting to connect all of those things, and then wanting to give people a little bit more of a background.
That's wonderful. Now, you know, you certainly are an accomplished artist. You're a musician, you're a singer, you're a published author, illustrator, you're also an architect. That's amazing in terms of your artistic talent.
Thank you.
And I really very much appreciate that. So now looking forward to the Dhahan Prize. When you received a call from us, what went through your heart, your spirit, your mind?
Yeah. I was really excited when we spoke because I remember learning about the Dhahan Prize, and I felt really inspired by the idea that Punjabi literature is being honored this way. This was like back when I heard about the prize. And like I remember my mom showing me on TV and she was like, "Oh, like this looks really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, this is a very special thing. It looks very different. It looks very, it just looked very well put together. Like you guys have put so much thought into how this event happens and how authors are chosen." And so it really just felt very full circle. It felt very right. It just felt like the right kind of partnership and space for me to share more and explore my work and share more about it. So it was just kind of one of those like signs from the universe where it's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This feels right. So yeah, I'm really happy that we're doing this.
Well, we're very excited to have you with us at
Thank
the November event
Yes.
to celebrate this year's 3 winning works of fiction.
Yes.
What I'm really excited about is that you as a person, your own accomplishments, your achievements, what you represent, what you're trying to do, that is really exciting to me because I think the future of Punjabi language and literature and culture lies with young people. And so that's another reason why we're so excited. You're much younger than I am, and that is very exciting to me. And then hopefully, when young people look at you, hear you tell your story, your art journey, and your accomplishments, we're hoping that those who are in the audience and maybe on the internet looking at it, they will be inspired that Punjabi language and culture are rich. In fact, Punjabi literature goes back 1,000 years in written form.
Right.
And it's been unfortunate that we Punjabis have not been able to tell the story of the richness, the breadth and depth of Punjabi literature going back this 1,000 years. So that is very, very exciting to me.
Yeah, thank you. For me as well. And I think that's what my aim is as well. I want people to see me as whatever I am, right? Like I'm a woman, I'm born in Canada, and there's a lot of people that can relate to those parameters, right? Like there's so many other young women my age who are Punjabi Sikh, and I want them to know that, Punjabi culture is rich, this language and script is very rich, and it deserves respect. And, no matter what it is that you have an interest in, you can turn it into something. You can nurture it, you can treat it like a seed, you can water it, and you can really, just go to town with it. And like that tree will bear fruit. And I just want people to have that kind of like belief, right? Like I just want them to know that that's possible. And, no matter what it is really, because I feel like a lot of the things that I am doing they're just kind of based on my curiosities and my interests, right? They're just kind of like, they are related, but they are kind of like they're a combination. It's like a fruit basket of like all these different things. And so I want people to know that, no matter what it is that you're interested in, whatever curiosities you have, go for it, and, you can turn it into something.
That's really, really good. One of the other things that I noticed way back, and I still notice it, that there is a gender divide within Punjabi culture.
Yeah.
Certainly in Punjabi literature, even the arts. With the exception of maybe a handful of women writers and artists over the last 100 years, the whole scene is dominated by men. Dhahan Prize very consciously set out to challenge that divide and to bridge it. So we've seen some steady improvement over the years. We are now beginning to receive more submissions from women authors. And so that's a bit gratifying, but we're not at a level where it needs to be. And I'm a firm believer that women are just as talented and creative. The potential is there in every one of us.
Of course. Yeah.
But we need to create avenues and opportunities for for everybody to show their creativity. So this is one of the missions of the Dhahan Prize as well, that we want to, while we highlight new works of fiction, we want to make sure that women are also inspired, younger writers are being inspired. Keerat, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ।
ਸਾਡਾ ਆਡੀਅנס ਵੀ Dhahan ਪ੍ਰਾਈਜ਼ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੁੱਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ, ਕੁੱਲ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਉਂਡ ਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਹੋਣ, ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਾਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਜ਼ ਵੀ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਹਿਤ ਕਲਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਉਣ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਣ ਕਿਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ। ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੀਨੋਟ ਵੀ ਹੋਣਾ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਗਾਓਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਸਾਥੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਕਿ ਰਬਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸਡ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਗੇ। ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ ਦਿਓ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਉਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਉੱਥੇ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ। ਸੋ ਯਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਇਹੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਡੀ ਅਸਲੀਅਤ ਹੈ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ 'ਚ ਹੈਗੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ 'ਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵੀ। ਅਤੇ ਸੋ ਸੈਰੇਮੋਨੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਿਨ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਆਪਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰੂੰਗੀ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲੋਕ ਗੀਤ ਵੀ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਇੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਗਿੱਲ ਉਹ ਸਰੰਗੀ ਵਜਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਥ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਮੇਰਾ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਟੀਜ਼ਰ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਰਿੰਦਰ ਕੌਰ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਵੱਜਦਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਅਤੇ so this is my interpretation of one of her lovely pieces. So we'll give a little teaser. Inna akhiyan ch pawa kive kajlave, akhiyan ch tu vasda, inna akhiyan ਚ ਪਾਵਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਜਲਾਵੇ, ਅੱਖੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਤੂੰ ਵਸਦਾ, ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਚੰਨਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਮੂੰਹ ਵੇ, ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਚੰਨਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਮੂੰਹ ਵੇ, ਬੁੱਲੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਤੂੰ ਵੇ, ਅੱਖੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਤੂੰ ਵੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਹੱਸਦੀ ਭੁਲੇਖਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਵੇ, ਹਾਸਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਤੂੰ ਹੱਸਦਾ, ਇਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਪਾਵਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਜਲਾਵੇ, ਅੱਖੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਤੂੰ ਵਸਦਾ।
Wow, amazing.
Thank you.
ਬਹੁਤ ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ। Okay, I'm going to ask one more question. One question, but I'll ask it once in Punjabi, once in English.
Sure.
We'll do that.
Okay, cool.
So, Keerat, you've gone to university, you're an accomplished artist. I'm sure you're very well read. I'm always curious to know what one book is the most memorable in your life that you have read, that has really impacted your life?
That's an easy one for me. So I have always been exposed to a lot of Sikh literature, thankful to my father, who's done a lot of extensive research in Sikh poetics and Sikh writing. So one of the most important texts for me is Suraj Prakash Granth, which was written in the 1800s by Kavi Santokh Singh Ji. And although it's not written in Punjabi, it is written in Gurmukhi. I mean, it's legible in Gurmukhi. I've been exposed to it in Gurmukhi. It is in the Barj language. But I think that the poetics of that book and the stories that have been told, it's a telling of Sikh history, the lives of the gurus, in a very poetic and beautiful way. I think that those metaphors and just the cadence of his writing has really impacted all of my work, whether it's my visual work or, you know, even my own writing and the metaphors that I incorporate into my writing and just my thought process. I think that is probably one of the most important books, and it's something that's always come up in a lot of different instances. Like my dad was the first one who exposed me to like little snippets of it. And then in recent years, we actually kind of sat down and did, you know, more formal santhya of it from the beginning and just, you know, moving through the writing. And I feel like that's just given me so much enrichment and inspiration. That's probably one of the most impactful books that I've been exposed to. And obviously I haven't read the whole thing. It's huge and like I'm still working through it. And because it's in Braj, in an ancient language that like, you know, we don't speak every day, it takes some time to like understand what's being said. But yeah, that's a very special one for me.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਰਟਿਸਟਿਕ ਜਰਨੀ ਆ, ਲਿਟਰੇਰੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਆ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਦੋ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਯੂਰਪੀਅਨ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਸਰ ਪਾਇਆ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਪੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਨਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ, ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੋ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਹੁਣ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਇੱਕ ਸੀਗੀ ਦ ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟ ਲਾਈਫ ਆਫ ਬੀਜ਼, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਬੜੀ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ 'ਚ ਐਵਰੀਡੇ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਹਾਣੀਆਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਵ ਬੁਣਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਬੜੇ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕਹਾਣੀਆਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਨਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ, ਅਤੇ ਖਿਆਲ 'ਚ ਉਹੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ।
ਚਲੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And again, we're really looking forward to our November program for the Dhahan Prize.
Me as well.
We're going to have a full sit-down meal. Of course, you'll be there along with your Jeevan Sati, your life partner.
Yes.
And so in every which way, I think it's going to be exciting. And we're hoping that there will be more younger people in attendance than in our past events, because that really to me is very important. Absolutely. To attract more and more young people so that they can get connected with their mother language, the first language.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that, you know, being there for me, I hope that allows other people to feel like, you know, we can be there as well. Like there's this Punjabi Canadian Sikh woman who's going to be there, and like she's our generation, we can also be there, right? So I feel like it's exciting for me to be able to just share my work and connect with people of all generations and backgrounds. So I'm very, very much looking forward to it.
Wonderful.